let's take some questions from listeners, and then we'll come up with a title for the show later. But how about this one? I'm getting a question from VW Chad W right now in my mind. He wants to know, how many potential national championships did the game cost the Buckeyes throughout the years? I started watching them in the mid-'80s, and it seems like many.
Well, just from there, because we could throw 1969 in there as well, I suppose. But I was at Ohio State from 1994 to 1998. And let me tell you, friends, about 1995, 1996, and 1997, because none of those years went as planned because of the Michigan Wolverines. 1995, their first regular season loss came at Michigan, 31-23. 1996 was 13-9 in the horseshoe. That was Ohio State's only loss. And then 97, they go up there. They had already lost a great game to Penn State, but if they beat Michigan in that one, there's a pretty decent chance that they're going to be one or two, number two, because Nebraska is going to be one, and Tennessee and Florida State had lost some games in there. So there was an opportunity in there for maybe a shared, but probably not because of Nebraska. So I don't know that 97 would necessarily count because they already had that loss, but you could go to perhaps 2003 with that loss to Michigan. I'll stop there, Tom. I'll let you chime in on that's just the 25 years ago. So feel free to jump on in.
Yeah, those are the ones that I definitely firsthand remember. 93, they were unbeaten but had a tie against Wisconsin. And as it turned out, Florida State won that year, but they had lost a game to Notre Dame. So they did have a loss. So theoretically, Ohio State could have, if they had beaten Michigan, they would have been 11-0-1, right? 11-0-1? No, they finished 10-1-1. So that was 9. They would have been 10-0-1 going into the bowl game, and they would have played. That was a Wisconsin team that played UCLA that year in the Rose Bowl and won. So, you figure they probably win the Rose Bowl. And if you're 11-0-1 and Florida State has lost a game to Notre Dame, 93, they might have had a chance. Going back through the 70s, I'm kind of working my way back through. I don't think they, 76, 77, 78, they lost Woody's last 3 years. They might have it might have been a tie in 1973 that could have cost them a national championship. I think that was a year where, like Alabama and Notre Dame, there were a couple teams that were sort of, it's one of those contested years that Alabama claims because Alabama claimed everything. But if Ohio State had won that game and not tied it 10-10, then they could have potentially at least had a claim for 1973 as well. So I think we can throw that one on the pile. So right now we got 69, 73, 93, 95, 96. You can throw a little asterisk on 97. 2003, I think that was a year that was a year with a split title, right? 2003, that was the year that LSU and USC, and I think they both had lost a game that year. So if Ohio State had won that Michigan game and gone out to the Rose Bowl and beaten USC, presumably you have a chance there as well. So, and then, more recently than that, 2023, they missed out on the college football playoff. And so, that didn't directly cost them a national championship, but it certainly cost them a chance at a national championship. 2021, they would have probably gone to the college football playoff if they hadn't lost that one, probably. I mean,
do you want to see that Ohio State defense against that Alabama offense?
Well, I didn't say that they would, I didn't say it was a guarantee, but it cost them a chance to play for it. So, that year, I think is one you could, I think you could, they won in 2019, but the fact that they had back-to-back Penn State and at Michigan and then had to go play a really physical Wisconsin team in the Big Ten championship game 3 weeks in a row, that one is a win that probably cost Ohio State a chance to, they were the number one team going into conference championship weekend, and they were really battered and beaten up because the Big Ten were scheduled like morons that year. And so then LSU kind of cruised to an SEC championship. Ohio State was kind of struggling. They were winning at halftime, I think, but it was close against Wisconsin, and LSU jumped them in the polls. to get number one and then get the first round bye against the Lincoln Riley Oklahoma team, while Ohio State had to go play Clemson and just beat the ever living crap out of each other for 60 full minutes. So, and at that point, whoever was playing Oklahoma was probably going to win the national championship because the other team was going to be too beaten up. So you could make an indirect argument for that one as well, I suppose, if you want to throw another one on the pile.
How about if Michigan loses to Ohio State last year, does that cost Ohio State a national championship? Because the Ohio State players will tell you that loss fueled them, and that was the impetus to restructuring and coming together and going and winning it all. So just a reverse asterisk or something there where the game kind of buoyed and pushed Ohio State to a national title last year for a change.
So there you go. There you have it. Ohio State wins in 2019 and loses the national championship as a result, and loses in 2024 and wins the national championship as a result. Do they even want to win this game anymore, Tony? Sources say no.